Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my updated September 2022 Senate prediction. I'm going to predict each upcoming Senate election in the midterms, see what's changed from August. Before I start, I just want to ask that you subscribe if you are new, and please consider leaving a like as well on the video and let me know what you think about my prediction. So getting right into it, I'm going to go fill out safe states as usual. These will not be states I'm going to talk too much about because we have a general idea as to why these states are safe. I will talk a little about Alaska. That one is kind of, it's safe either way, but it's just kind of between Shibaka and Murkowski, whichever one wins. Hopefully Shibaka wins it. She's a much better candidate, and she's actually a conservative, unlike sellout Lisa Murkowski. But either way, the Democrat won't win in the state, despite what everyone might think. Oh, well, the special election in Alaska means, oh no, the state's trend. No. It's a special election, and it was ranked choice voting. There is no chance that the state is actually going to go for a Democrat. And likely by the midterms, that House seat will flip back. But despite that, we'll continue as well. We'll do the safe Democrat seats. In this case, I think that's right. Just fill out all of the safe. So these are the safe Democrat seats in this case. That one might seem a little out of place to some. I'll explain that one in a minute. So I'm just gonna go across and do each state just a little bit here and talk about them. Explain my reasoning. Don't forget Hawaii. So I'm gonna start with Washington, actually. Washington, I recently made a video on this, whether or not Republicans can win it. And a recent Trafalgar poll actually, weirdly, has Republicans overperforming in Washington, but underperforming in the Rust Belt, which makes no sense. But nonetheless, we can see here that Patty Murray was only up by about 3 points on Tiffany Smiley, kind of a moderate. I don't really know a whole lot. She's not an amazing candidate, but a Republican's better than a Democrat. And I broke down the poll a little bit and talked about it. It's a fairly accurate poll, I'd say. But as a whole, it's enough for me to say that Republicans could win it if they put enough effort into it. And I think that's why I'm actually going to put the state in a lean Democrat margin in this case. I think it is possible it could get that close based on the recent polls. Now, it's unlikely, but it is possible. So I'm going to put it in this category for now. My opinion might change on that the closer we get to the election. Now, continuing, we also have Nevada. Nevada, I've done a video on this as well. I don't really have anything to say about it that's changed, other than the state's going to go in a lean margin for Republicans. Laxalt will win it. He's a good candidate. Cortez Masto is horrible. There's no chance she wins at this point. The Republicans are actually polling much better in even Nevada than they are in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona. Now, Wisconsin and I think Ohio and Pennsylvania, most pollsters are underestimating Republicans there because they seem to do that consistently, and most polls in general underestimate Republicans by a few points. We saw that with 2016 and 2020. Even the 2018 midterms, which were not as big of a blue year as they claimed it were going to be. And 2014 midterms, where Republicans were only ahead by 1 or 2 points in the general, and they ended up winning by about 5. So the point stands, Nevada will go in a lean margin for the Republican candidate, Adam Laxalt. He's a great conservative candidate, but he's not too far. He appeals well in a state like Nevada. But moving on, we also have Arizona. This one, I don't entirely believe this polling, obviously. I have issues with it. It's not perfect, but I would say it's close to a toss-up. But realistically, again, polls underestimating Republicans, and the closer we get, the more we campaign. And if there is a debate between Mark Kelly and between Blake Masters, if there is a debate between the two of them, then we will see easily Blake Masters take the lead in that race. And I'd likely say I'd put it in a lean margin as well, probably around 2 points realistically. He's a great candidate. He's an amazing candidate. All the candidates running in Arizona right now are amazing candidates. Every single one of them, they actually stand for true conservative values, and they have strong policy on election integrity, which is very important. continuing, we have Colorado here. This one's a little interesting as well. Now, yeah, it's probably going to go Democrat, but this is an interesting poll to see. Joe D, he's garbage. He's a horrible fake sellout Republican who's at this point campaigning to the left of Michael Bennet in some cases, but probably would be better than Bennet. At least in some cases, he'll vote more or less more Republican than Bennet will, but I do have issues with him. But it's also unlikely he wins. However, seeing this margin is interesting for a state that was D like 13 or something, and it is very fast trending to the left. It's not a conservative state. It's very, very liberal. It's very interesting to see him this close. So I'm not going to give it to the Republicans in this case. I don't think Republicans win it, but I'm going to put it in a lean margin, maybe likely. I'll put it in a likely. It'll get closer than some things. A lot had it as safe, but I don't think I can put it as safe knowing that poll is out there. And just based on a lot of research, I can't say it is safe. I think it's a likely margin. It'll probably realistically end up close from a 6 to an 8 point, somewhere in their margin for the Democrat. Now, another interesting one we have is Wisconsin. This one is just ridiculous. The polling from it's been garbage, utter garbage. Ron Johnson is running. Ron Johnson running against Mandela Barnes. Barnes is not winning the race. You can't tell me he's going to. There's no chance. There's been nothing to indicate it other than garbage polling. And polling in general seems to just be horrible in the Rust Belt, especially Wisconsin. Because if we look here, the state, it's not trending to the left, it's trending to the right. But as you can see, Ron Johnson won by about 4 points. Again, that's actually 5. And about 4 points again as well here. This is the point. Ron Johnson does quite well in this state. He's going to win it. And I think polling is just not very accurate. He'll likely win it. I'd say even in a likely margin. I think he'll win it in a likely margin. I think it's ridiculous that the polls are this far off. And a lot of the issues with the polls are obviously how they're doing them, how they're performed. The likely versus registered voter polls. Registered voter polls are not the way you do polls. It should be likely voters. Polling voters who are registered is ridiculous because not all of them are going to vote. Likely voters are actually likely to vote. It makes more sense. But my point still stands. I think Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, he is a juggernaut in the state. He will win probably by about 5 to 8 points, somewhere in that margin. Now, Ohio, this one is pretty much safe as well. I'd say about 8 points for J.D. Vance. I'm not going to get too much into that. The polling's been garbage out of there. It's pretty easy to see that he's going to win it. Now, moving on, we also have Georgia. This one is interesting. Recently, we saw Herschel Walker actually pull ahead of Warnock in some polling. Now, again, considering and assuming Republicans are underperforming generally or overperforming polls as they normally do, this is an interesting thing to see. There was a lot saying, oh, well, Georgia won't go Republican. Warnock will win it. But Warnock is a disgusting man. He's a fake Christian. Oh, well, I'm a pastor, except for I support the murder of innocent babies. Oh, really? Good. Good to know. You're a disgusting man, and you're a fake moderate. But the point stands. If this polling we can see here is showing this, and that's a fairly accurate poll. I did some research on it. This is a fairly well-conducted poll, as well, considering just how popular Brian Kemp is in the state. Even though the state is trending to the left, Herschel Walker is going to do well with the suburbs, surprisingly anyway. He's going to do decently well in the suburbs, which will be very helpful in a state like Georgia, which is massively growing in the suburbs. And despite what some people might say, oh, they don't like him, he's a good candidate. And for the most part, he's very good on policy. So I do think he wins it by a lean margin in this case. Originally, I think I had it tilt, but in this case, I have to give it lean margin. It just doesn't make sense to put it otherwise. Florida, Marco Rubio, that one is... I don't know why anyone actually put that as a potential toss-up race. I could have just put it right off the bat in the safe column, but I didn't at the time. Any polling that doesn't have Rubio up, polling also underestimates Republicans in Florida quite a bit, but Rubio wins it. Like, he's not the best, but he's not too bad. He's a decent senator. He will win it though easily by about 10 points. at this point. I don't see it happening any other way. Another interesting one is North Carolina. This one, a Republican seat, but the incumbent not running for re-election, that was Richard Burr. We have Ted Budd, a great candidate running against Sherry Beasley. Beasley's not going to win it, I'm sorry. Most polling also does have Republicans ahead anyway. I'd say even in a likely margin, I'd give it to Republicans, despite, oh, well, the Democrats are going to tell me, oh, no, you're being way too nice to Republicans. Oh, they lost these 2 special elections, so, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, 2 House special elections where Republicans normally don't get out to vote, where, there's open primaries, ranked choice voting, there's all these different things playing into it, plus separated votes for the New York one from the actual primary, which had an impact on it. And then on top of that, we also have independents who did not turn out very high in the New York one. Well, that has an impact when independents are currently breaking for Republicans in a much higher margin than they are for Democrats. If approval continues to sit where it is for Biden and Democrats as a whole as well, and the economy continues to be in the tank, this is going to happen. Don't just believe every single poll the media feeds you. Oh, well, the polls say Democrats are going to retake the House and the Senate and win all the governorships. No, they're not. They're just not. When will you learn that the media is just covering for the failures of the Democrat Party? My point still stands. North Carolina will go probably likely Republican. I think Ted Budd wins it. Now, this one is another very controversial one. This one, Pennsylvania. This one has been, polling's been a little all over the place on this, but for the most part, everyone seems to be thinking consensus. Oh, Mehmet Oz will not win against Ogre John Fetterman. The idiot is not going to win. I'm sorry, Fetterman will not win this election. He treats everybody, his appeal is trying to be, oh, well, I'm like you, by wearing dirty, disgusting clothes, going to rural areas and acting like he's completely normal while looking like a slob, and also being paid by his mother basically till the time he was 40. Like a true socialist, I guess, but socialist policies are not going to work with the working class, populistic type voter in Pennsylvania. And now, yeah, Mehmet Oz has some issues, but more and more people are starting to unite behind him, which will likely lead to the Republicans who are up in the air about it switching back and voting for Oz. Overall, Fetterman's chances are completely falling apart. And I do think eventually, by the time the election comes around, Oz will be pulling ahead by just slightly, and he will win it probably by 3 or so points, 2 to 3 points. So I'd say lean margin for Pennsylvania at this point. People like some of the biggest detractors of his, being like Jack Posobiec, has recently turned to, not saying he loves him, I don't think he does, and I don't really like Oz that much either, but he's better and more likely to support a MAGA agenda than Fetterman will. We have to consider Fetterman is a socialist and a Democrat. Do you really think he's going to be better than Oz, even if Oz has issues? Come on, let's be serious here. But the point is, people like Posobiec are turning around. They're starting to support Oz, even if they have issues with him. They're still considering supporting him over someone like Fetterman, because Fetterman is just that much worse. It's not like a moderate Democrat that you'd protest vote for. It's a socialist. This is worse, much worse. Now, finally, we have New Hampshire. This one is Maggie Hassan. I don't know, the primary has not happened yet. So the 2 candidates that would be running against Maggie Hassan, I don't actually remember their names. I think one of them's a Bolduc, and I don't remember the other. But both of them poll fairly similarly. I think there's a few where they're close. It's within a tight margin. I don't think Bolduc is as likely to win it. I think he's generally better on some policy, but I don't know if he's as likely to win it because he's more of a hawkish type politician, which doesn't really go well in New Hampshire. But I do think this is winnable for Republicans in a tilt margin. It'll be much closer than most of these other races. I do think, though, I think it's very possible Republicans could flip this seat from Maggie Hassan. It'd be a bit of a stretch, but I do think it's possible, and I hope it happens. There is enough polling to suggest it's possible, so I'm going to ultimately end up giving it to the Republican, whether it be Bolduc or the other candidate. I always forget his name. But yeah, So this is my breakdown. This is my Senate prediction, my updated September Senate prediction. We're getting closer and closer to the primaries. Remember, everybody, get out and vote. We cannot get complacent. If we do, we will not win. We need to keep the red wave alive, and that means voting red, voting Republican. Bring your friends, volunteer at polling stations. Make sure you do everything to make this election go in our favor, except for fraud, obviously. That would be wrong. But either way, we will win if we put in the effort and the Republican Party funds the right elections. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Let me know what you think of my prediction. And to all the liberals who are going to hate me for what I said, good. Say what you want. I really don't care. You're wrong. Anyways, that's all for now. Hope you guys have a good night.